How did you join ships? Let's come to that first.
Okay, so as you said, begin at the beginning. Spain, where some of us got left behind and the ship sailed out.
How old were you when you became chief engineer?
I think I was 28.
Wow.
Yeah.
28, I've never seen any chief engineer of 28.
It was a UMS class. In the middle of the night, something went wrong or somebody did something wrong. I don't want to insinuate. And there was this foreigner second engineer. He had a late night. And he just took it from 0 to full speed. Within 15 minutes, you could, if some of you have had the misfortune of smelling what an iron burn is, when the iron burns, how does it smell? I have had the misfortune many times to see that. And I could smell burning iron. And I said, the exhaust boiler is on fire, complete boiler is on fire.
That's also a very interesting field. As a pilot also, I had a word with Captain Zarir. He's like, you can also become a consultant for a marine lawyer. How many years were you working in this kind of arresting ships and all?
Not very long.
With the banks.
Not very long, about 2.5, 3 years.
That's it.
2.5, 3 years. Though I may sound contradictory to the common thought process, I think fossil fuel is going nowhere in a hurry. One of relevant question which I asked today is the technologies which we have developed is we are relocating the point of pollution. We are not really green in the true sense.
Very true. Okay guys, welcome back to another exciting episode of Port to Port. Today we have a very adventurous personality with us who needs challenge as his dopamine to grow in life. So we have Mr. Kishore Nigam, who was ex-chief engineer, and today he owns multiple offices across the globe, and he owns the first Indian company which is providing end-to-end solution in oil and gas industry. So, Mr. Kishore Nigam, thank you so much for joining me today here.
Thank you, Rajat, for having me. And it's a really wonderful to be having an opportunity to interact with my co-seafarers, juniors and seniors, and a person of your exposure in terms of social media. So thank you once again for having me.
Sir, you have created empire. So would you, start telling me your journey, like you were sailing? How did you join ships? Let's come to that first.
Okay, so as you said, begin at the beginning.
Yes.
I think joining sea was to some degree incidental. I was always fascinated. I think at the time when I was growing up, Sindabad, the sailor used to be one of those things you read. There wasn't much of digital world at that time. And my mind used to race away into alone into wilderness, flying into different countries. I think that was somewhere very deep hidden. So when I cleared my 12th standard and appeared for various exams, incidentally, my first profession was medical. I joined medical for 3 months, and my heart wasn't in it. My real heart was in architecture, where my parents at that point of time said, you can't earn your living in this. And coming from a typical middle class, the moment DMET result came out and I stood second in all India entrance exam, I think the decision was made. All kind of thoughts ran through my head, all those fancy foreign worlds and seas and challenges and mermaids too. And that's where...
That's not the practical...
Well,
it's not true.
Imagination has no boundaries, as you know. So, the challenges... I think it was the inherent like in me for challenges to rise up to them and experience them. I think the most driving element for me is experience of challenges. And that's how I ended up joining sea.
Okay, so there were two sides, so deck side and engine side. What made you decide that you want to join as an engine side?
So look at in the perspective. When the year I appeared, it was DMET was separate entrance exam followed by interview, which did a lot of checking on your technical knowledge, and of course the medicals. I think as a child, some of us have a very innate tendency to dismantle everything we lay our hands on, whether it's a toy or a gizmo or a transistor. It's your father's only transistor, you end up dismantling and getting whacked for it. So I was one of those kids. So engineering was somewhere, the curiosity to dismantle and see how thing works was probably the one reason behind it that I went to the engineering side of it.
Okay. So how was your engineering, like Panchu and all? It was all smooth, or you had some tough times? That time you used to get a lot of shore leaves also, right? Now that it's finished.
Right. So, I started with Barber Ship Management, and you're right. I remember the first time we called Brazil, there was nothing called gate. There was no... So Shore leave was more about when you got off your watch and you walked off. Sometimes in your boiler suit, dirty boiler suit, to the nearest bar. And
Correct.
but I think on the other side, the kind of learning which we had to start at the Panchu level was severe, in the sense you were literally thrown in from the first day, assumed to take your job, your responsibility of your watch keeping, when you have not even actually understood the system, except for in DMT you run the theoretical part, and of course we go to workshops where we do a fair bit of learning. I won't say real severe, but so you're thrown in at the deep end and you'll find your way in the engine room.
Any crazy stories of shore leave that you want to discuss? I mean, you will have a lot of stories.
So I think, many of them, I would say.
That's what.
Yeah, but one of the best ones was in Spain, where some of us got left behind and the ship sailed out, and it would have been a disaster for the master as well as the agent and the company. And so we were bundled in the back of a car, and in fortunately, the next port after Cadiz was another port in Brazil, in
Same
Spain
country,
itself.
same country.
And we were whisked through in the dicky into the port and back
Really?
on board. And the funny thing was, we were on the crew list, but we weren't on board.
You were not
So
on
that's something. I think I won't say sit on judgment whether legally that's correct or otherwise, but it also reflected certain strength of characters and people standing for you. Realizing that it was a genuine problem. We had a genuine problem that we were coming from a place and the taxi broke down and it was a little late hours. And then we
cannot wait for you for
Yeah,
sure.
you couldn't wait for it. And we were in a deserted run where there was nobody coming to help you. And we had to wait till the morning till the taxi could be fixed up. So when that was explained over the phone call by the agent, I think everybody, including the authorities, were very understanding. So that was one of the, I would say, discussable experiences.
I'll tell you one experience.
Yes.
So we went to the port of Alexandria in a cargo ship, general cargo ship. And so they're like, 2 batches captain made, because everybody wants to go and see the pyramids, right?
Absolutely.
So I was in the captain's batch. I was cadet that time. And Purser was also with us. So Purser had a envelope where all the passports were kept. Okay, so we all went to pyramids. We enjoyed. We had food. We came back. While we were coming back, sitting down in the taxi, the captain asked Purser, where is that bag of passports that you were carrying? Purser like, Sab, I don't have the bag. Where is the bag? How will we go on board? Sab, I left at the pyramids. It's kept there. My God. Everybody, I mean, I was a cadet. I was like, okay, chalo, aur surely milega. I don't want to go on board ship, so
I understand.
that's okay for me. But captain really, he was like really sad. So he hired, agent was also with us. So he hired one horse, and the guy, he took him in the middle of the night back to the pyramids. I don't know how much he charged, but he found the same bag, came back.
You are lucky, because in Egypt, things would disappear.
Sab, how did your transition from being a chief engineer to show job happen?
So Rajat, I think by that time I had been a chief. So let me go back to where the later part of my senior engineer. So it gives you a perspective of why and how the change came about. So I was sailing on these 325,000 tonners OO carriers, which were doing Middle East, Brazil, Japan, and back to Middle East. The OO, so one way was the oil trade and the other way the ore. And they were 47-day voyage one side and similar voyage on the other end. You never saw, except for Cape of Good Hope, you never saw any land in between. So it kind of give you a lot of time to think over, to practice, to learn the ship itself, learn the engineering aspects of it. So I think people were some of the staff was very concerned that these long voyages are getting into my head and they're making me unstable. But in my head, it was an opportunity. I could devote a lot of time to my self-learning. I'll done probably a lot more reading and learning than I did in DMET happened there. My engineering knowledge grew by leaps and bounds in these ships. So when I had finished, I rose from the rank of, I joined them, these ships. There were 2 sister ships in Barbers at that point of time doing the run. And I think from 3rd engineer to chief engineer. In between, of course, I was posted. So I was also a troubleshooter kid for them. So whichever ship had typical challenges where nobody wanted to go, I would be pushed in with, of course, a lot of back patting, and my ego would get inflated and I'll fall for the trick one more time to take up the challenge. And so when I became a chief engineer on this ship, probably the first Indian chief engineer on these ships, always they had Norwegian chief engineers and masters. So I faced a little challenge with the nationality because the master was probably twice my age. And the second engineer and the others were also foreigners and much senior. And there was always this inherent...
How old were you when you became chief engineer?
I think I was 28.
Wow.
Yeah. So we had this challenge.
28, I've never seen any chief engineer of 28 years.
So there's another story how it came out. I cleared my chief. I think we all clear our... In our times, everybody wanted to finish your propelling time of 18 months. So some of us did at a stretch 16 months, 12 months, like that. So I think I finished my first ticket, that is at just doing 2 ships. I finished my 18 months. And for the chiefs, I think I did 3 ships because of some family challenges. So within 5 ships, you actually cleared a chief's license. But from getting chief's license to actually getting in charge, used to be a big gap, probably 2 to 3 years. Sure. But we'll discuss another time. Fate had its own thing to do. The chief engineer on board had a heart attack, Norwegian, and I was asked to take over. So there was providence, or you call Fate. It destiny takes its play as well.
True.
So when I had been chief engineer, I faced 2 major challenges in this short stage of 1 year there. And then I realized that the challenges or the learning was coming to an end, and I was getting restless on these long voyages. And then I approached the management of Babas and I said, I need to quit. I've done at sea whatever I could learn and whatever was of interest. Now it's become too monotonous and routine for me. And I think very kind of the gentleman, one Mr. Salunke, who is still a very, very respected person, who is the founder of ITM Dubai.
Okay.
He was the one founder, and he was my mentor in that sense during sailing days. Okay. And he mentioned, no, you come to Dubai and you will be the superintendent. And I couldn't believe, but that's how it started. The journey ashore came up.
You mentioned about some challenges in your chief engineer time. What are those challenges?
Yeah, so I think 2 of them stand out in my memory from the lots. So the day I took over and we started on the full sea passage. So these are these engines were RTA 90s and very advanced in control for their time. And they needed to be dealt with very systematic, kind of incremental values of the speed setting. If you went beyond a certain, they had a multi-stage complicated exhaust boiler, it will go on fire. It was known, and it has happened in the past. And so we gave away from Singapore from Middle East after full away. We were at a full speed, and then it was a UMS class. In the middle of the night, something went wrong, or somebody did something wrong. I don't want to insinuate. Mm-hmm. And the engine tripped, and the ship stopped. And my instruction is, I had just taken over 3 days back. This was the 3rd day of the passage. And I had said, nobody will restart the engine unless I am in the engine room. And there was this foreigner, second engineer. Those days, alcohol was allowed on board. Yeah. He had a late night. And he just took it from 0 to full speed. Oh. And the whole, within 15 minutes, you could, if some of you have had the misfortune of smelling what an iron burn is, when the iron burns, how does it smell? I have had the misfortune many times to see that. And I could smell burning iron. And I said, the exhaust boiler is on fire, complete boiler is on fire. And I just ran down and I stopped the engines. But by then...
So you could smell in your cabin?
In the whole accommodation. The exhaust, the blowers, AC blowers had already started picking up the fumes of metal burning. And you could see the funnel glowing red and flames coming out. And we had 3 million barrels of oil on board. The whole tanker was loaded to 325,000 tons.
It's a panic situation.
And the master was a Norwegian, very experienced. And he called me and he says, I don't know, Chief, what we are going to do, because we are sitting on a bomb and we are in middle of nowhere. And I think between 2 of us, something was very common. Because of his experience, he was not in panic. And I think God's gift is I don't panic. I'm sorry, but that's how it is. So I told him, Captain, you take the deck. And he says, what shall we do? I said, just let's turn all the fire hoses from a deck and put it towards accommodation. Let's see the save first. We'll see what happens on the forward side.
Boundary cooling, let's start,
No, our disagreement was, he said, I will put all the hydrants facing on the cargo tanks.
No, it
I said, no,
doesn't-
the other way around.
Correct.
The heat is on this side of
Correct,
this. So
correct,
what are we saving? There's no
correct,
fire on the...
correct.
Oh, then he said, yeah, you're right. But
Yeah.
see, the training comes into play. What we train for is fire in the cargo hold. We never train for fire in the accommodation when you're having cargo of oil, right? We never train for that. So one needs to... I think one of the important thing is not to... the reference point should be live. It should not be training alone. Does not mean that you just apply without thinking.
I think common sense is also important.
Right. The reference point have to be first evaluated whether what I'm learned in training is relevant here. So he realized what I was saying, and then deck was deployed on putting full guns, all the guns towards accommodation. And it took us about 18 hours to stop the fire. Those days we didn't have these digital cameras, but Captain took and was sending to Norway, to the head office, and there was panic all over. I mean, the panic was because of what potential it held from pollution perspective.
What was the cargo?
Oil, crude oil.
Crude oil.
Yeah. So, then probably after 18 hours, everybody was deck tired. And I mean, all of us, I would say every single seafarer, every deck and engine gentleman, you know, that commitment of a seafarer is what makes them so unique.
True.
And nobody ever thought, "Main bachunga ya main bhagunga." Everybody, and I used to actually watch and lead the team in the engine room because I said the bolts are going to snap and break because the heat is so intense, and they will fly like bullets. So nobody without helmet and nobody facing the casing, because if you get hit on the back, you will survive. You get hit on your face or your chest, you will die. So we had gone through those calls. People initially thought, अभी नया chief engineer है तो कुछ भी बोल रहा है, पीठ दिखाओ क्या, ऐसा कोई आग लड़ता है क्या? So, but the question is, you as a leader, you got to think. You don't need to answer anybody. You don't need to justify to anybody. But when the things subsided and we got in control, then everybody realized, because not a single guy got injured. Some got the bolts, flying bolts on their back. Somebody had an injury on the ribs, but nobody was injured.
Was there an explosion?
No, what happens is the casings is held by bolts, like, you know.
True.
So when there is an iron fire, the bolts are expanding and they'll snap like a
like
spring,
that.
loaded spring, and they'll fly like bullets. So that was happening. And I heard the first one ping, and then it's not that I figured it out right at the beginning. I heard the bolts snapping one. And then it flashed through my head to warn everybody that we need to be careful of this is happening. So we managed to, that was fire under control. But also remember, when you're pumping that kind of water, all hydrants into your exhaust trunking to put down it's gone it's gone into the main engine sump. It's gone into the turbocharger. It's gone into your cylinder head. Your main engine is,
Almost.
Right?
Yeah.
So once you finish that, and Norway was on the line, and Captain was at he's not an engineer.
So the engine is stopped and you're just busy
fighting the fire. The ship
fire.
is drifting. Basically, it's drifting. You're in mid-ocean. So there is nothing called anchoring. I mean,
you had one generator running.
So generator room, fortunately for these ships, the generator room is slightly off the space.
Lucky.
So I would say that is by design a fortunate thing that we did not have generators going out of operation. The main engine was thoroughly flooded. Turbochargers, you could see the seawater kind of flowing out. I mean, one of those scenes as an engineer you'd never want to even visualize. Main engine turbochargers, seawater coming out from everywhere, 18 hours later, we kind of decided to rest people in batches. The next question, which was from the head office in Norway, was, Chief, when are we going to get full speed underway? And here I'm looking at seawater flowing out from turbocharger, from the crankcase sump coming out, and I'm thinking, what do I answer to these gentlemen? Sure. They're asking how many hours. They don't have even a concept what I'm saying or what is happening here. But I think it takes a while for you to gather. It took me 15-20 minutes. I went on the deck, had a few long swigs of fresh air, of sea air, and I came back down and I asked the engine room staff, deck staff to be given, and the captain and chief officer were, what are they going to do? I said, I need to clean my sump first. Because the first step is to get my engine ready, is to have my oil, which is full of seawater from damaging the bearings and everything. True. And these were giant, they were 8 RTS, huge engines for the times. So cleaning the sump. So, everybody cooperated. We pumped out the oil into storage tank and then we flushed with it. This was going on. Meanwhile, on the engine room staff, we started lifting one by one cylinder head of each ship, of each unit, and trying to look at inside where the seawater, because it was full of seawater. So
how many units you had? 8?
8 units. Yeah. So oiling with that, making sure the surface has got enough lubrication. So all that routine was planned within half an hour between me and though he was not happy with me, the second engineer.
What he is not happy? He actually created the entire problem.
Yeah, but you see that whatever you say, the age and nationality factor never disappears in play. Human nature at play. True. So anyway, we organized that. We changed the fuel valves. And by that time, I think another about 18 hours had passed. And I was starting to hallucinate because you are more than 48 hours almost on your feet. And not. So I told, the third engineer was a very trusted guy.
Same Norwegian?
No, he was Swedish. And some other 2-3 gentlemen, some Indian crew was there. And I said, okay, these critical elements, 4 hours I need, and then I'll be back. I went for 2 hours and I came back and then they had finished their bid by then. And we dismantled the turbochargers because we don't know what's happened. Because the moment you start and it explodes, that's another story. True. So myself on one side and the chief second engineer on the other side, 2 turbochargers. It had 2 turbochargers. And we dismantled them, we looked at everything, greased the bearings. The rest you can't do. I mean, what you can't do is there's no point breaking your head over it. While we were doing this, the other element which was working in my head, but I did not want to overload the rest of it. And between me and Captain, we were discussing. I said, Captain, the exhaust boiler is melted. The whole burnt iron is clogging the exhaust. Even if I start the engine, there is no space for exhaust to go. Correct. Engine will not fire. And he said, what do we do? I said, it's not a small work. You need to, these are probably about 8 feet diameter exhaust. And I said, to cut. And then he says, yeah, we'll cut and we'll remove and we'll put some steel plates welding. I said, sir, these are not steel plates. These are not mild steel. They are cotton steels, high temperatures. They will. You put mild steel within 2 days of sailing, there will be a hole all over. Then he says, what to do? And fortunately, again, fortune plays a huge role. We had taken some sheets of cotton steel to make some new things in the pump room.
Okay.
And they were about 8 sheets. So when I measured them and I measured the diameter, I realized we are just touch and go. Wow. Again, this is
out
providence.
Of nowhere.
You start believing in providence.
Correct.
Right. So while they were here, I get the deck fitters and everybody to start cutting. And start shaping. Of course, they didn't understand what I was trying to do. I said, don't put your head. This is not the time. Follow the leader. Just
yes.
This is the time. Just listen. Don't use your IQs or just take your safety precautions and work.
Correct.
So by, I think, another 20 hours, they had managed to finish roughly. And then I told him, now you cut off this. You can't cut this off. I said, why? We have gas. We have cutters and you guys are experienced cutters. So the mind block also plays a huge role. Because you haven't done something before, it cannot be done. Yes. But when you start to put a logic to it or a very systematic way of looking at it, you suddenly realize, it can be done. So the most daunting task needs to be broken down systematically into smaller pieces. Don't look at the big picture right away. It starts to be daunting. And then I think we managed to cut it off and another 22 hours we had the welded. Meantime, engine room, engine was ready. And I think 1.5, probably on the 48th hour, we were on full sea speed.
How many hours were you awake all time?
I think totally 70, close to 70. Those 2 hours in between I got, of course. Which again, you are lying down, but your mind is racing. It's just that body is getting rested on it. So when we started and the captain said, and captain was so enthusiastic that we got, he was looking at 8 days, 10 days. In fact, in his mind, he was even considering asking for towage. But coming into...
you were in Middle East, eh?
No, we were far out into the from the Middle East in the Indian Ocean. So coming to that point, towage was not so easy. And he was, if you take a 3 knot or 4 knot tugs to come or 5 knot tugs, it will take 10 days and 11 days, 2 days to tie up, all going through. So when I told him we are ready to start, Captain, he says, are you sure? What am I going to say? Can I call Norway? He was so like a kid. I said, yeah, please do. And you stand because they'll ask a lot of questions. I don't know what I'm going to answer.
Correct.
So when he got on the phone and they start saying, are you sure? Have you checked this? I said, please do not ask me questions. I'm on the spot. I'm ready. I'm moving. I'm not even asking you. Anything you need to put out on a message because I'm not in a frame of mind to listen to all these queries.
I mean, you're awake for so long.
Yeah. And I'm on the spot. I'm telling you what...
Correct.
Mujhe gyan mat do, in short. In short.
So your superintendent must be asking kya kiya and all this.
It's not only superintendent. Svein Sorle used to be the president of BSM at that point of time, Norway head office. He was also on the line because it's a big event. You're sitting at the time bomb of oil there. So when we got underway and full speed. Then captain couldn't contain. He called up everybody on Baba's office to say,
My God.
we are back to full speed. So I think that was trial by fire as a chief engineer just 3 days after you take over. And I think we stood good. We proved our mettle.
The kind of logics and the common sense you used that time, it's very rare. 3 days in the rank. Yes. Remarkable, sir.
Well, I think it flows. It's not an effort. It flows. As long as you don't panic, I think my suggestion to all people for every walk of life, not only for shipping, but in personal challenges as well as, I think we take the wrong direction and we overreact when we panic. So anytime something very daunting occurs to it, just take few breaths, walk around, give a 5 minutes of, I call it brainwash. That means as if the problem hasn't occurred. Just walk around with that thought and you will see things coming in perspective. As you go back to the problem, you will start to visualize in your own head, solutions start flowing. It's like saying you need to get the dirty space off to get clean water in. True. And you start to see that. So I think that's a learning I had, which was very good.
Very interesting. How did the shore life happen to you? Shore job?
I mentioned to you that
ITM, yeah.
Yeah. So then I kept on pestering them that I want to go. I'm quitting sailing. I'm going to some other company if you're. So they said, no, you come ashore with us and come to Dubai and start working for us. So I worked there, and as I said, I found my superintendent to be my colleague. So within 3 months, I said, no, it's not a place for me. Of course, we had to give some stories at times to not hurt sentiments for people who vouched for you.
Helped you, yeah.
And I moved to Hong Kong and joined Univan.
Okay. At what rank you joined Univan?
So Univan was always a factory for producing superintendents. So you walk in. So it's again another of those experiences where you walk in and even the new chief engineers of the ship, they walk in and you get your title as superintendent.
Okay.
I think this is another topic for some other discussion, that how our systems are a little wonky compared to the Westerners, where a superintendent, a chief engineer by de facto doesn't become superintendent by itself. He has to go and do something called a trainership, some kind of training. Understudy before you take over as a full front. Because superintendent, I think in the Eastern Oriental perspective, the rank has been reduced to more of a glorified chief engineer without really the management skills or the relevant shore skills being imbibed or being trained for. And that's where the struggle, and I think in Univan, for example, you walked into the office, you're given a joining and you're given your 5 ships and say, these are your ships, these are the names. That's all the kind of orientation we used to be given. So that's where I came with Univan, and then we started Fleet. And in Fleet, I would probably take a minute to tell you the story, which was, so we had 4 of us, no ships. And anytime a fax machine started to whir, we will run for it. So I will answer this message.
Okay.
Because, the fear of not having enough money to share was always there.
Yeah.
And I think 4 of us worked for first 2 years or first 3 years. We didn't know which country we would be in the morning, which country. So
really?
There was a time when I traveled though my family was in Hong Kong, I didn't return to Hong Kong for 6 months at a stretch. From one ship, took over delivery, delivered, next one in dry dock, delivered, another owner's delivery. So I started the voyage, this one in Indonesia, then flew to USA, took over there, went to Europe. From there, came back to Indonesia, then to Malaysia, 2 times to Malaysia, then to Singapore to dry dock, and then came back. And on a side note, my son didn't recognize me because he was small, and for 6 months, he had not seen me. So you went through it. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't come easy. It takes a lot. And it's not to say that we did a lot. I think it's more I'm discussing it for the youngsters to
For sure.
to see that to achieve or to do something in life, you can't walk the common path and expect outstanding
Sacrifice.
results. Yeah.
How did you convince all of you to come together and start Fleet?
I think the senior-most gentleman was the first because of various circumstances. I think the challenges in Univan had become obvious to him. Univan was Captain Wonderpier it's a very strong statement, but I think he manipulated Indian psychology of not leaving Hong Kong for some kind of a inherent feeling that if they left Hong Kong as a superintendent and not happy to work with Univan and they went back to India, they will be looked down upon and they will lose their social status. I have never understood it. Honestly speaking, I have never understood the psychology that Indians carried, and he exploited this to the hilt. I mean, today where I sit and the age on my side, I can look at it in a much more clarity and analysis, psychological analysis. This was this one line element which Captain Wonderpeer very elegantly exploited. And secondly, he exploited was the typical Indian mindset of crab mentality, to pull the other guys down, to climb other Indians down so that you can look better and you can climb the ladder.
Really?
This was and I think the gentleman I'm talking about, he saw it, and he had been the right-hand man of Wonderpeer for 10 years.
So he had some differences,
and he knew how he would react if he came to know that because normally people would resign after 10 years of work and thank each other and walk out. But knowing Wonderpeer, he realized that it would be a mayhem. He would harm him in terms of monetary things and other things, hold back his sum. So it was done in a very quiet manner. And other three of us others were moved off as if we didn't want to, or we were looking to go back to somewhere or something else in the sense. And I think we weren't senior enough. I had finished only not even 1 year with Univan, so I wasn't ever looked at as something very significant loss to them. The other two gentlemen also were not very, very long, and though the two of them had sailed with Univan, I had never sailed with Univan. And so we were not looked at something significant risk in letting go. So we were let go.
And how much capital you had initially or how did you plan? Okay, we'll have this capital for 1 year or?
So as I mentioned, Noble Group, which was where we started. Fleet is a ship management arm now it's all Noble Group itself has split up now. They told us we'll give you as $100,000 as a seed capital to start. Nothing more, nothing less. Start generating your own funds and pay yourself from that.
Okay.
That was our mandate.
And you had enough savings for your family to survive?
I think the savings was from the sailing time. That's all.
Yeah, that's all.
Nothing else. All. Nothing else. In fact, we were all dipping into our sailing time savings. On the same note, I would say that we did not really think in those terms of worry, because we were so gung-ho that some way or the other we'll find our bread and butter. So we never thought of that risk, that we've saved some money. It wasn't there on the plate.
So you're very confident this is gonna work?
Yeah, I think all four of us had probably the mindset of ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा क्या होएगा, छत तो कहीं नहीं जाएगी, इतना पैसा तो सेविंग्स में है, खाना तो 3 वक्त का मिल ही जाएगा, रोटी, फिर बाकी क्या मतलब you need to be so we'll talk to you later about the entrepreneurship. I think you wanted to discuss, as you mentioned. There I will give you some more what was at play at that point of time with four of us.
To be honest, that's also one of the important lessons to me, because in 2021 I was Goa pilot since 2015, and as I told you, I started a photography company in Goa. So in 21, I decided that I will resign. So I'll do this business full time.
Okay.
And if you remember, 2021 pandemic wave 2 hit in March last, right? I got relieved from the port on 31st of March, and my parents were with me. I did not tell my parents because I was in Goa. My parents were in Bareilly. So I thought there's no point of calling and telling that I resigned. Since they are coming, let them come. And then I will take them to office and say that this is my new office. I resigned from the piloted job. So I took my father there. I told him, Papa, this is our office. I already resigned. So he's a hard patient. And he did not take it in a positive way. And so, this emotional drama at home.
Yeah.
So my father said, Rajat, this is not the time for this. I mean, the entire world is suffering. So, okay, you took a decision because the wave 1 was gone and things were improving. So there were a lot of shoots. But when the wave 2 came, a lot of shoots cancelled, like we had no work whatsoever. But at the same time, I was also, exploring opportunities in the tech. We were trying to create an app, but that didn't happen. So my father said, please take your resignation back, and maybe later on you can decide. I said, Papa, it's not easy decision to make this decision, right? So I'm taking it back because whatever the reasons are, but I will have to think a lot before I make this decision again. So I think fate is also very important.
Yes. So, yeah. But I think, Rajat, what you said, what you really very elegantly mentioned out there is being realistic also is important. I think that's the underlying what you said. You realize what you want to do, but then the circumstances showed you that maybe not your heart's desire, but need of the hour is this. Very, very, very well put. Yeah.
You started Fleet and you were there for how many years?
17.
17 years. And then OMI happened.
Okay, so when I moved from the Fleet story was we grew up in Hong Kong, and then we had the Europe to be really carved out with not too many European owners, mostly Far East, Eastern European Americans were the primary owners,
Ukrainians
and Norwegians,
Eastern Europeans.
Norwegians owners. I'm talking about ship owners.
Okay.
So then we needed to actually capture the European market more. And there was some incident happened on one of our ship, which also brought around a challenge that somebody senior needs to be based in London. So to handle this case, it happened in American waters, a container ship. You would know the case. Collided with with a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
So to handle all that, who would go was thrown up in the air, and nobody senior guys wanted to move from Hong Kong to London because all said and done, Hong Kong is a much more comfortable place, much more efficient place for family as well.
Okay.
But then I saw the opportunity. For me, it was an opportunity, and I volunteered when everybody wanted to be hiding behind, and moved to London to handle that office and grow the business out there. London was this is relevant to our discussions further. So I will say London was probably my best decision ever in my life to move to London. When everybody was, my family refused to move for first 1 year, saying they came there for a while. They said, this is not for us. We're going to stay in Hong Kong, you stay in London.
Okay.
You want your career to move, and it's okay, fine. For the sake, I was 1 year, I was bachelor, I was running my own house in that sense, living in guest apartments.
Interesting.
What happens in London is the exposure you get to financial side of the world, to the legal side of the world, to the insurance side of the world. I think that's what made me. Otherwise, I would have stayed on as a director or whatever, or MD, and probably, like most of those other 3 colleagues, they're retiring now one by one as general managers, managing directors. But you are that, for want of a better, but you're just a pure technocrat. You have stuck in that hole.
True.
So I give my full credit to my exposure there. I was there for 7-8 years. That was my max exposure there. So we managed. London also did a wonderful thing is you get to understand the Greeks being one of the major ship owners out there. We need to do a lot of interaction with them. They have a bulk of ships out of there, that part of the world. You understand their way of doing things. And I think as Indians, as seafarers, we need to learn a lot from them. How do they occupy? So you have this psychology or a somehow perpetuated thought process that Greeks cut corners. I have worked with lots of Greeks, and I've seen how they really actually optimize. They don't cut corners. They are very sharp. They have a long history in the field, and they are very sharp to know where the value returns and risk is there and safety is not compromised. Most of them. There are crooks in every nationalities. We are not talking about that element. We are talking about standard operators. True. So I think that's some learning which happened. And of course, the exposure to financial institutions wisened up my financial knowledge of raising funds, how to finance, how to make your studies, how to make your reports, which will be acceptable to the big funds. So those all comes handy. And then I became a consultant to the world's largest maritime lawyer company called Maritime, Norton Rose and Riley. I was on their panel as technical. So whenever cargo damages, engines, issues, I was consultant in that sense.
Okay. That's also a very interesting field. As a pilot also, I had a word with Captain Zarir. He's like, you can also become a consultant for a marine lawyer because the kind of expertise you have.
Right. The operational challenges, you see, the books don't teach you.
True.
The visualizations, because you have been doing those operations, you have been seeing those challenges firsthand, you can actually create justifiable logics out there.
Correct. Okay, so from UK.
So UK, in I think 2008 onwards, 2010 onwards, I started to get this itch that even this is now ship management has saturated in my head. There is no challenges. It's more volume repetition rather than content repetition. So it wasn't challenging myself. 1 ship, 10 ship, 20 ships, 100 ships, 600,
Same
1,000.
thing again.
It's kind of, it gets like a recorded replaying.
Correct.
And then I started to teach myself a bit on the wind farm side, the dredging side, not so much on the oil and gas. By then, of course, I used to go up to Aberdeen and have a look at what things are working out there, but it was still too Hebrew and Greek for me to understand, because even the terminology is so different. And I think the first consultancy I started for banks and Greeks in there on my own, where we are advising them to, if they have challenges with paying their loans, cargo challenges, funds chasing them for settlements, arresting ships for them, which are out due, for banks, mostly the Greek banks and one major bank in finance in normal shipping. I won't name them because, again, it's not right. So they started giving me a lot of those kind of cases that you need to arrange and arrest my ship here. This owner owes us so much and he's completely changed the name of the ship. We know this is the ship, you need to catch it.
This is very common yet also, I feel.
Yeah, it is still.
And there's no rule stopping them? Or is it like a monkey business out there?
I think it's very good to say in a law court and say, arrest this ship and get the money. Try arresting the ship. The physical act is so very challenging that it's very easy to make a law and make a decree. That's fine. For example, my biggest success rate was I had to arrest 32 ships of a bank within a span of about 4 months. I was given a deadline, and then of course the huge bonus to if you achieve this, and we did.
32 ships.
I created in different countries for a team of 45 people spread out, all from London. I sent them out under different garbs. And we positioned them, and we knew their itinerary. We monitored for 1.5 months the itinerary, monitor cargo. So there's a lot of sort of espionage activity.
CID.
But then all this data is available. See, all you need to know how to mine it. How do you mine this data? Like you have from the ports, which ship is coming, what cargo.
Agents.
Agents. So it's there for you to put the system together. So that's what, now I see that there are certain programs and apps available which we created to achieve that.
Everything.
So that was an start of my growth into doing on my own. And then I think what happened was also, when I said that I'm not interested in continuing with this,
How many years were you working in this kind of arresting ships and all?
Not very long.
With the banks?
Very long, about 2.5, 3 years.
That's it.
2.5, 3 years. Because also that's another challenge. We'll discuss on the private on that.
Okay.
You don't want to get segmented into one particular thing. Then you get only to those kind of opportunities. I realized that only that nature of work was coming to when my specialty was technical. I was not intended on running a CIA agency to arrest.
Correct.
That was only a sort of extension of our expertise, right? What we can do.
Correct.
So that's the reason I did not want to pursue that. There was a lot of money, good money, but then money has never been my motivator.
Interesting.
It's important, but not
correct.
The end desire on that.
Then OMI.
So then in 2011 or thereabouts, Captain Bharatan and I known him so in Univan I used to manage OMI ships as a superintendent. You see the wheel?
Yeah.
When I was in Univan, I was superintendent for the OMI ships. So I used to know Captain Bharatan. He was the MD India for the OMI ships, tankers. And I used to be managing them from Hong Kong. And so we used to interact through the owners, the owners sitting in US, OMI. So common people, common friends, and some challenges, some burnout, some fires, and we would interact. So when I decided to quit from Fleet and go from Noble and on my own, a formal notice was given to me, 6 months, you can't touch anything in ship management or anything. Garden leave as the requirement. True. And yes, of course, I knew my responsibility. I said nothing. But I used those 6 months to start all these businesses, all 6 of them, one by one and different. So it was a good time. You get paid for it and you set up your alternate businesses. Correct. And I came down to India.
So from Fleet, you went to UK, right?
Fleet for Europe. I was in charge of Fleet
and
Europe.
That time also you were doing this consultancy to the banks?
No, so I towards the end, once I put on my resignation or I expressed my desire to the Fleet board or the Noble board to quit, then I started doing, not before that. Okay. And I informed them that I'm not interested anymore in this. Okay. And I think that is bitterness started. The moment you start to think, though it's your baby, it's your part, but then, a lot of suspicion that wo jahaj leke bhag jayega, apni company kholega. So I said, no, I have no such intention. It doesn't motivate me anymore. But I think nobody believes you.
Really?
Yeah, nobody believes
But I
you.
mean, the kind of person you are, I think you are very straightforward. But then,
Yeah, but the question is, everybody is a victim of their own thought process. We all reflect our thought process on others. We don't try to understand the man across his thought process. We always use our thought process as a parameter to judge everybody, right? So everybody was thinking, nahi. So to a point when all my owners, which I was handling, were being directly contacted and said, is there anybody asking you to take the ships away? But that was never. I had made it very clear. I want to strike out on a different field, different line on my own. So I'm going to start something new. Nobody believed, but now they do.
I joined OMI in 2006. So I sailed from 6 to 8 in OMI. Then I shifted to OMCI. And then LMS. I was with Captain Dhage for a while. That's how I know him.
I see. No, he gave me a run up on you.
Yeah. So you joined OMI in 2011.
Yeah. So what happened is Captain Bharatan had sort of purchased it out from OMI when it went in Chapter 11. He was paid out, and then he said, and he was thinking of, I think by 2011-12, Captain Bharatan had decided that he doesn't want to do much. He's very well off. So he wanted to just kind of do a lot of things. He still does. He's very active. And then we met here, and then he said, so a couple of ships were still there, which I was running under with. So I had let go of most of the staff because I didn't want to actually run ship management. But then there is a process you have to hand over back in a very organized manner. You can't just tell owner one day, now we're closing ship management. So we took a while till 2013, early 14. And during that time, we had a misfortune of 2 of our ships' crew being hijacked, involved in the hijacking.
I think it was during OMCI times because I was also okay. I saw these guys in the office.
So I inherited that case actually. Well, that's another part we had to deal with.
Correct.
I think from there, Captain Bharatan and I agreed, and he initially was the opinion we should continue ship management, but I think the way things were panning out and a lot of challenges. Then he said, run it the way you want, it's yours. So that's when I took over, and then I said we need to create OMCI rig, because that can't be ship management. Ship management itself cannot be rebranded as. So you still have OMCI. OMCI ship management is alive and kicking, doing some small jobs here and there, more of consultancy in nature. But OMCI rig was floated as an absolutely new company.
So how did this idea of oil and gas came to your mind?
All right. So another fate plays a big role here.
Yes.
So we have our office here. Right behind us is Transocean. Transocean is the world's largest deep water company in the world, oldest drilling company in the world, US based, headquartered in Houston. They had 3 rigs to be done up in India, which won the ONGC tender. And every day I used to walk around from my office and go to the turn, and I used to say Transocean building. and I used to think, one day I'm going to go and find some work with them.
Wow.
And there was this, one day I was going, I used to see this well-built black gentleman, American gentleman, standing there talking to everybody, very nice, jovial, laughing. So one day I just took the initiative of saying, hey, gentleman, what's your name? My name is so-and-so, and I think it's very interesting to, he was a huge muscled guy, and you're a very interesting person. And he says, and yourself? And I said, we have a ship management company, project management. By then we had rebranded. And he says, project management, what sort of projects? I said, I never heard you in oil and gas. No, we're not really in oil and gas. We're in offshore and we're in marine. And okay, come up, let's have a meeting. And then he says, I wouldn't take his name again because he wouldn't like it. Then he says, we have this, you guys, you think you marine engineers can do this? Kind of, it's a different world. I said, we never say no for anything.
Yeah.
And I think to say whether we can, the best judge you will be once you give us an opportunity. And he says, what is my risk? I said, that's the trust in us. If you have the trust in us, go ahead with it. We'll not let you down. That much is my personal word. We'll not let you down. He says, see, these are 3 rigs simultaneously and in a Pipavav. In Gujarat, when there was no facilities, very big challenge.
The weather is also crazy, man.
Crazy. And I'm talking about 2014 when there was nothing out there. It was much developed now. And so I said, okay, what I'll do is I will take a trip there myself. Give me a day. And meanwhile, we'll give you the proposal. You say what you need to do. We were upfront with him. We said, So these were jackup rigs. So you have jackup rigs, you have drill ships, and you have a semi-sub. These are the typical floating or non-floating assets on a drilling offshore. And I said, I've never been on one, to be very honest, but I'm very confident the moment I put my foot on board, it will be. So he said, okay, while you come back from there, I want you to go on one of our rigs, which is here, drilling in Panna field.
Okay.
And I want you to write a report. I want to see how much you garner in a short period or what's your grasp power.
Right.
I read like a crazy man. Every night I was reading anything and everything available on internet, on books, and talking to guys I've never met, just blind calls to गाली भी मिली कि भाई रात को तू फोन कर रहा है, ये यूरोप है, यहाँ पे इतना बजे हैं. So I apologized.
So they had the rig in Panna and you were talking to people who are managing that rig from UK, Europe.
No, sorry, I didn't get you.
You mentioned
No. So these are two different things.
Okay.
So this is Transocean rigs. They were operating here and they had to go off in project because... So I'll explain to you how very different...
No, because you mentioned that he gave you a task of making the papers for Panna rig, right?
No. He didn't tell me the rig. He said, you go to Pipavav because I wanted to see the facility first where we had to do the project. Then I'll come and give you what are the challenges. Then he said, when you come back, I will send you one of our rigs offshore. And then you write a report and come back to what you found and what you intend to do.
Right.
So I'll judge whether you have it, what it takes.
Right.
Because we were very clear. We don't know nothing. We told him upfront. But we have the confidence and the trust in our abilities. It says, all right. And I had 3 DMT guys in my team by then.
Of course.
So I handpicked. I think the power is in the team. And I came back from Pipavav and I was shaken because reaching Pipavav itself was like a nightmare, believe me. Forget about doing work. And I said, if I have to move those huge machinery spares, I need to budget and plan, which will blow up the whole budget. And these guys will go completely nuts on me. But anyway, you can't, as I said, don't get daunted. Few breaths, clear your mind and let your brain fill with thoughts, solutions. Okay. And they came flooding back to me.
Okay.
So I was back. On the way back, I was sitting and scribbling my notes so over the years, I've developed my own shorthand, which nobody can understand what they mean. And I was having notes ready. I came to office, I made those notes. I walked across to his office and I said, I'm ready with this side. Now give me permission to go on which rig you want me to go. What we didn't know is that going offshore requires BOSIAT, the helicopter diving course, where you need a UKOG.
Oh, right.
You need a UK approved medical, not our normal medical.
Yes.
And there are... They called BOSIAT and HUTE and BOSIAT and all that. Correct. So you ditch a helicopter in mid-ocean, how to survive.
Correct.
So anyway, so I said, give me 1 day. How many days course is this? I had already found out. So 3 days mein sab kuch ho jata. Main 3 din mein maine course karke. So first guy in the company to have a OCAT, UKOG and everybody, myself.
Okay.
And then on the 4th day, he arranged for me to board from ONGC on the chopper. I went on board. And when I'm landing on the helipad on the jackup rig, I said, I've never seen anything like this before. So farthest away from anything like a ship. But anyway, so you start to orient and right from top, I started making my imaginary picture, what I'm going to do, you start formulating it. It's a process. If you are focused, it flows. I think in most of us, it does. I landed and so I didn't know that you can't walk straight away from helipad to anywhere. You have to be going into the orientation room. They will first orientate you, give you check your PPs, everything. And then you are given a written permission to step out of the accommodation. So compared to shipping, it's a very different world. And hum log to apna ready to run kind of an action. So I was hauled up.
Correct.
So the in charge on board, like a captain, is called OIM, or Offshore Installation Manager. He hauled me up. He said, Rookie, if one more time you step out of the accommodation without my approval, next chopper, you're back. You're going back. I apologized, and then I sat with him. I gave him my background, and then obviously he started opening up, realizing he's not a rookie. He's just new territory.
Correct.
So we hit well, and I think not that he helped you, but he didn't interfere. See, one is you can create
problems.
You can create difficulties for you to. He allowed me to go everywhere with due precautions, and I think I was there for 2.5 days. And when I came back and I gave my report to this American, he says, in our 45 years of existence, we have not seen anything of this standard. So then he said, all 3 projects, yours, come tomorrow, sign the contract, get your team. Now there was another challenge.
Yeah.
At that point in time, we were only 7 people in the office. And he needed minimum 21 people, 7 for each rig.
Of course.
My challenge was where do I, and देखो garbage उठाना market से number heads का game नहीं था, ये game था committed and knowledgeable लोगों का.
Correct.
So we told Michael, honest, there are not enough people of this caliber. He says, I don't want to know. He gave us a hint.
This is your job.
Okay. No. He gave us a hint. I don't want to know. I just need numbers. I don't need names. I need 7 positions, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 for the 3 rigs. And you put position 1, position 2, position 3. What he was telling us is same people put. So we realized that we will not be able to cope. So we brought in another more DMT people I knew who were hungry like us. And we made it to about 13.
Okay.
And then we did the project, and the cake, icing on the cake was from their management was, we have been doing this for donkey's years with our own in-house management team. We always take more than twice of what you guys did. When you guys gave us your estimate, we thought you are jokers and you will fall on your face. And secondly, we thought that the budget which you had drawn up, they told us, draw up your budget. We don't know.
Yes.
Everything, including space. And we thought you have no idea of what you're talking, but you guys beat the budget also. So we don't know whether what we have been doing so far is wrong or right. And OMCI rig came into its own existence. And so that became folklore sort of. I was called in Dubai to give presentations here, there. The local owners here started saying, what are you guys doing different? We have been owners for so long. What is it different? So from there, the journey started. And I think we haven't looked back. We have added into our portfolio from project management. So we are also proud to tell you today that in offshore crane management, we are the second largest already in the world, assets under management.
Offshore crane management.
Yeah.
I think that's also a growing field.
Yeah, it's a very big field, and it's very specialized field.
Very specialized.
So the only guys ahead of us are somebody who's more than 100 years old company. And the guys we kicked out, they have been in the business for 40 odd years, and they really, of course, these are all Goras, so we don't have much love from them.
Yeah.
And our London office is all whites, but they work for us. So,
okay.
So that's, and it's a story, OMCI is still a growing story. It's still not done. I mean, we started from project management to added crane management. Now we are one of the biggest VFD and CR power controllers, problem solvers in oil and gas in this part of the world. In fact, right now in Europe, we are probably looked after as anybody. When the problem doesn't get solved, we are called in.
Okay.
And from there, we are into fire and gas systems. So ship ke fire and gas system or oil and gas ke bilkul alag hote hain. The standards are very different. True. So we are another, that's our major lines. And then we have green energy, as I mentioned. So we are still...
Yeah, I mean, I was about to come to that
Please.
question. Seeing the present environment and seeing the present sea and the news, Musk Line, Hapag-Lloyd, they all are shifting to green fuel. So what are your thoughts, or are you planning to venture into green shipping as well?
Right. So starting just pre-COVID, we had with this vision very clear in our head that if you visit our website, you will see that green energy is one of our services and our consultancy services as well. And we are a part of a very big conglomerate out of Europe, which is kind of in a big way in the Middle East. Again, I cannot name them. We are bound by NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. So give you a small example of it, how this green energy where we are involved, and we'll come to the oil and gas side of it is. Have you heard of indoor farms? So there is a multi-storied indoor farms. You grow vegetables, you grow grains inside a warehouse, not on the field.
Okay.
And this is relevant post-COVID. The whole Middle East woke up to the fact if the logistics gets locked out worldwide again, food being a primary thing which we might have all the oil and the money in the world, but we can't eat that.
Correct.
So this started off with Dubai, then Kuwait and Saudi. They are all going into what is called green farming in-house. So these are huge, giant warehouses, multi-layered, where you have hydroponics, not only pure hydroponics, which is water growing in water, but full systems, which are, you create artificial sun and sunlight equivalent. So we are a part of that team. It's a partly UK government backed as well as a private consultant, and we are the executing team and consultant for the certain parts. So these are the kind of on the green energy. Now coming to your question on oil and gas and the green energy, I think it's a big question, but where I stand as an engineer and have vastly involved in this, you have 3 choices at the moment. Let's not talk solar or let's talk wind energy at the moment. Let's keep that out, because what we are talking about is either methanol, hydrogen, or ammonia. These are the 3 major things we are. I think none of them have really reached a level of practical applicability in terms of infrastructure that this is my take on it, is next 30 years, if you think we'll switch over, no, it's not happening. And though I may sound contradictory to the common thought process, I think fossil fuel is going nowhere in a hurry. It's the realities. One needs to look at the numbers. One needs to look at the calorific values. One needs to consumption pattern and production pattern.
True.
It's not. And then one of relevant question which I asked today is the technologies which we have developed is we are relocating the point of pollution. We are not really green in the true sense.
Very true.
Where are we producing those pollutants? That has shifted. Yeah. Has the total energy input has changed? I don't think so much. No. Because the real change would be only solar, hydro, and wind. Because that's where you're not putting any fossil fuel or any other.
EVs are creating e-garbage. So the same thing, right?
Sir, I don't know whether you have read today the Princeton's head of physics. His take, that has been my take for a very long time. More than 30 years I've been holding that view. 20 years, sorry. That carbon is not the challenge. You have read that today?
No.
He has released that, are we chasing the wrong end?
Okay.
And he says we need more carbon in our atmosphere because greening the plants or the vegetable fold is not dying because of anything else, because lack of carbon dioxide. They need carbon dioxide, and he's put a figure where he shows in the last millennium, the carbon dioxide has become lower. That's why the green coverage has come down. So we have been probably looking at the whole picture upside down. You should read it. I will forward it to you.
Yeah,
it just came out yesterday.
Very interesting.
And he's a authority on the subject. He's not some loose talker or presenter. He's a head of the department, and he from a very.
So basically, he's challenging the decarbonization of ships. My goodness.
He's saying that are we chasing the right thing? And he actually points the finger at the big money, big businesses for driving that agenda to fulfill their existing infrastructure. कैसे कुछ ना कुछ produce करते रहे जो बिकता रहे. He's pointing to big corporates, engineering corporates in US and Europe who have created this hoopla. I had made this statement when I was still in London. More than 16 years back, I had made this statement that it is being driven, and it was an IMO meeting.
It's basically just an agenda of big businesses.
आप उसको पढ़िए. I think we need to also share on your thing with people. I'm not saying that we are contradicting. We are opening up a new thought process. We should be aware of different thought process, and I think it's a good thing to hear very different thought process, even if they don't agree with or the widely accepted norms.
No, but this actually just changed my perspective of looking at decarbonization.
Yeah. So is it correct? Are we chasing the right rainbow, or are we actually at the wrong end of the rainbow? That's the question. Look at where the world is changing today. America is almost self-sufficient in the oil production. Canada is with the sands oil. The new stars on the horizon are West Africa. Namely, we are also active there, by the way. Guyana, Venezuela, Suriname. These are the new finds. In fact, Guyana gas is probably, it can feed that part of the world for more than 30 years.
My God.
So where are we talking about doing away with fossil fuel? See, energy consumption or energy need for humans humans will override green over it. Because green is a concept which is a concept. Can you prove to me? I don't think anybody really has got the equations right on that terms. It's a notion driven, and notions in some way justified within a limited context, not an absolute. I look at world as earth as a world, not world as a regional physical region. True. You need to think the atmosphere is global, the whole earth as a planet, not a region of this North Sekka and South Sekka, European Sekka, and this. I think we kind of.
Yeah, in a way, you're talking about the reasons.
You're regionalizing it. You're not thinking of planet. Planet is one. It's not boundaries. दीवार नहीं है घर की कि उस तरफ अलग देश है, इधर एक अलग देश है. We are looking at planet. So what is happening is you see all the fossil fuel is going on that side of the world. All the major players, Exxon Mobils of the world, Shells of the world, Technips of the world, Total of the world, everybody is moving out there. China has its oil. It's not mining it. It'll be more of a feeding this part of the world. Asia, a part of Asia and Middle East itself.
That's it.
Everybody else, and Europe, of course, Europe has nothing of it. But then Europe can be not weaned off Russia yet.
Yes.
So, but then that again is a different route altogether. You now having the Arctic routes opening up for moving LPGs and gas carriers.
Yeah.
And then you look at this, what I'm talking about, Venezuela, Suriname. Then you move through Mediterranean. So again, this part of the world is becoming irrelevant in terms of oil trade eventually. So oil trade isn't going anywhere. It's just the geographical play will shift. Shift. That's it.
Okay. One important question, sir.
Sure.
Since you have created teams, successful teams multiple times, what is the underlying thing about creating a team? So you just mentioned that you fund the startups also. So what do you see in the startup founder that keeps them apart from the other founders, and then you invest in them?
I think three things. Particularly one is we try to first dig on the commitment to first is dig the knowledge of the project on the subject on which they are doing it. We dig very deep. Probably we read as much as they know. Because that's, unless you really understand the line you're backing, you're just back. So one is punt. You just have a gut feel and say, yaar, ye to bahut kama lega, is pe laga do. So that's not me. That's Captain Bharatan does that a lot. We are different personalities.
Correct,
that's how we are a good team together.
Correct.
And once you're convinced that, I'm not saying that you need to be a dawn of the subject, but are you deep enough to really take it up? Your fundamentals. I always look at fundamentals. I'm not influenced by a lot of frills and gizmos at the edges. Those are add-ons. Those are coming at a later age. And secondly is the commitment level. And I'll tell you the third one, which is for all our friends and colleagues who are listening to this and want to be entrepreneur, the appetite to lose all material belongings you have and still be happy. That is the defining, for me, that defines an entrepreneur. When you're not scared of losing every material possession and for your dream, you have arrived. Nothing will fail you. Because I tell you, when I quit and started, my own family used to question me, can we afford this house if you keep doing like this? We have zero salaries. My son used to ask me, will I have to get out of he was in London private college. Will I have to probably, go to a cheaper college? And will we have these cars or fancy cars which we had, or we'll have to scale down? And I said, I have no answers. But enjoy the ride. I said, enjoy the ride. And it's very difficult for family to take it because, again, I'm saying for every family, I'm very blessed with a very, very loving family. But every human at certain point starts to think about मेरा क्या, इसमें मेरी risk क्या है, इसमें मेरे कंफर्ट. सो कोई को भी कंफर्ट जोन से बाहर नहीं आना चाहता और कोई स्केल डाउन भी नहीं करना चाहता, चाहे टेम्पररीली हो. Nobody wants to scale back. So I think if you answer this question in yes, you are a right candidate for me to, or for us to. My way of looking at investing, more than investing, you are on a right track, you will succeed. Nothing will stop you. हम 90% एंटरप्रेन्योर्स फेल हो जाते हैं जब वो थोड़ा सा लॉस हो जाता है, थोड़ा सा कंफर्ट जोन हट जाता है, तो यार वही ठीक था, सेल करते हैं. आई हैव माई बैचमेट्स हु एवरीबडी वांटेड टू इमुलेट और स्टार्ट. आई थिंक एक्सेप्ट वन, एवरीबडी वेंट बैक टू सी, बिकॉज थोड़ा इधर लोग डूबा, वो मशीनें बंद हो गई, उसका ऑर्डर नहीं आया 2 महीने, वाइफ्स इज स्क्रीमिंग मर्डर, चलो बैक टू सी. सो दैट्स लाइफ.
So sometimes I feel the kind of life that we are giving to our kids, they are being pampered so much, they are not going through hardship. Do you think it's right way to
so Rajat, your that's probably you need a whole segment for this.
That's a long question to answer.
That's a long. There's no straight answer. It's a very multifaceted elements to it. But in a brief, since you have asked me, I think we are responsible for it. We have never made them struggle for what you and I got. I can tell you, when I went to DMT, my father said very clearly, बेटा उस टाइम में ज्वाइनिंग में 10,000 रुपीज़ 4 साल के देने पड़ते थे, एंड देन एवरी ईयर की फीस एंड वो फिर दुनिया भर का तामझाम, आपका यूनिफॉर्म, DMT यूज्ड टू बी यूनिफॉर्म. He said, this is the only money my father, he was a police commissioner, mind you, but there was no money at home. We had rutba, we had servants, we had gadis, but we didn't have money. So he said, this is all I can give you. After this, if you have to pay your next fees or your clothes, वो तुम देख लेना, मेरे पास नहीं है कुछ. So from first year DMT, we were on our own. We used to take lessons in the Port State colony थी DMT के across. We used to go there in the evening, bunk the fall in and take classes and make money. Second year से थोड़ा stipend मिलना शुरू हुआ, तो थोड़ी सी बात अच्छी हुई. But this is where we come from. Whereas the children today, we are responsible. What I am saying is, I have seen parents give to the child before even the child, because the neighbor's kid has got that particular gizmo before the child needs or even the doesn't need. Keep up with the Jones, as they say. You make him. What is happening is two effects are happening. The children's hunger or the need. I think one of the primate growth perspective or need for humans is the need. जब तक नीड नहीं होती इंसान ग्रो नहीं होता एक्चुअल सेंस में. ही बिकम्स ए कंज्यूमर रादर देन ए क्रिएटर. तो हमने अपने बच्चों को कंज्यूमर बना दिया है बाय गिविंग देम ऑल द पॉसिबिलिटीज. और जो मेरे जैसे माँ बाप जो थोड़ा टाइट रखते हैं कि भाई यू विल गेट इट व्हेन यू डिजर्व इट, वो कंजूस कहलाते हैं. तो बट आई हैव वन सन, आई ब्रॉट हिम अप द सेम वे. And I think if you have the opportunity to meet him, you'll see a fine gentleman who knows what value system is, though he's very young. But this is what we give it. I think the best thing we have given to the children. And the second part of it is whether uski देन देखिए आप क्या हो गया. Our generation, I think 12th, first degree के बाद हम कमाना शुरू कर देते थे. आप typical earning age देखिए today. It has shifted. No, it has shifted. Decent वाला, I'm talking about a career job. I'm not talking about वो बीटेक करेगा, मैनेजमेंट करेगा, उसके बाद वो उसको. एंड फॉर देम जॉब इज नॉट दे शिफ्ट जॉब्स फॉर because I didn't like my boss. I didn't like that. I had to travel too much. There's too much traffic out there. I don't like that country. It's too cold. I mean, come on, be real.
Media,
come on, be real. This is not the way. तो उसमें ये तो facial हो गया, ये physical हो गया. How it is impacting their psychological is their ability to deal with challenges and adversities is becoming lower and lower. They panic at the first point. They want to run away with challenges. They don't want to make decisions for themselves. True. So ये जो इंसान की जो बेसिक टेनेट्स हैं जिसकी वो स्ट्रेंथ होती वो हमने वाटर डाउन कर दी है. सो दैट्स माय टेक ऑन इट.
सर ऑल्सो आई विल एड दिस वन पॉइंट टू दिस. द सोशल मीडिया, the reels that the young kids watch these days, they keep releasing small amount of dopamine in the brain. So our younger generation, they are never in the form of creating something big. This is the addiction that all the social media has created.
Right. Instant gratification to some degree also plays a role.
There's no sacrifice. There is no bigger picture. I have to do this.
Right. But are you creating something substantial? See, dopamine is a good thing. But dopamine cannot feed your stomach. Remember that.
True.
It can't give you a house and a ceiling. The need, I think, the very simple for all the generations, even for generations to come, the need to create a need. The sense of need is a very important driver of all kind of achievements.
Hunger has to be there.
बिल्कुल. वो क्रिएट करना पड़ता है. हर कोई पैदा. See, we all born with our own traits. I don't think every individual is born hungry. True. Sometimes you need to create that artificial need, even if you can afford it, to drive that.
Sir, see, when I shifted to Goa, I'm coming from North Indian family, and everybody is in a rat race. Shops bhi khule rahenge afternoon mein. In Goa, shops don't open between 2 to 4 p.m. till date. They don't give a shit about making a lot of money and stuff like that. Content people.
वैल्यू सिस्टम अलग अलग है. आप किस चीज़ की अहमियत देते हो? पैसा जोड़ने में या बैलेंस लाइफ में या अपनी हैप्पीनेस? तो रजत, एक आप भी एक्सपीरियंस हैं कि लोगों की, मेरी एक ज़िंदगी की अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, 99.9% पीपल लिव फॉर अदर्स एंड टू इम्प्रेस अदर्स. दे नेवर लुक इन से कि भाई तुझे क्या मोटिवेट करता है. छोड़ भाई, इसको ये है, तो वो तेरे को बोलेगा वाह रजत यू आर ग्रेट अचीवर. बट व्हाट डज रजत रियली, व्हाट गिव्स रजत द किक? जिस दिन आप वो अपने से ट्रू हो जाओगे ना, आई एम नॉट सेइंग डिस्कार्ड अदर्स ओपिनियंस, आई एम सेइंग बी ट्रू टू योरसेल्फ, एवरीथिंग फॉल्स इन प्लेस. बट आप देखोगे तो नेबर के यहाँ घर में वो गाड़ी आई तो भाई अब तो बड़ी वाली उससे लेनी है, अब तो बीवी भी पीछे पड़ जाएगी आपके, कह रहे ये क्या है, हमारा कोई इज्जत नहीं है. तो दीज आर्टिफिशियल एडॉन्स जो हमारे माइंड में हार्डन हो गए, पकड़ ली है उन्होंने. हम इतना गहरे उसमें डूब चुके हैं कि हमको रियल मी दिखता ही नहीं है. देयर आर सर्टेन थिंग्स बेस्ट अनआंसर्ड. दैट ऑल्सो इज एन आर्ट, वन शुड नो what is left unanswered.
What should be left unanswered.
हाँ, तो देखो इंजीनियर्स की सबसे एक कमी है जो which you can probably put on. We have this tendency to close the boxes.
True.
Unfortunately or fortunately, life is not about closing boxes. एक इंजीनियर को तो एक एग्जाम्पल देता हूँ कि इसको 100 चीज़ें करने को बोल दो, वो 99 जो उसके समझ में आ गई वो नहीं, उस पर फोकस नहीं करेगा. वो जो एक नहीं समझ में आ रही बाकी वो 99 छूट जाएंगी, वो उस पर ही फोकस करेगा. 99 आपकी रह गई. जो कर लेता भाई वो तो कर लेता कम से कम, जो तुझे आती नहीं उसको. तो दिस इज व्हाट आई एम सेइंग, नोइंग टू लीव व्हाट इज नॉट ऑफ सिग्निफिकेंस और नॉट अटेंडिंग इज इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट्स. And this is what I teach my people, that जरूरी नहीं कि आपको 100 में से 100 मिलने चाहिए, 99 भी जो बहुत अच्छे हैं वही पहले उनको हासिल कर लो आप.
Okay, Saab, so we are almost about to end the session. Two important questions. One is the advice that you want to give to your younger self, or let's say the younger entrepreneurs or the sailors.
So I think primarily we're directing at sailors who want to be entrepreneurs, right? I think that's the segment we are in. So I think as a sailor, depending on which side you come from, the deck side or engine side, I think what you are learning on board is do it with the intent of utilizing that knowledge and not only a means to pass your time, on your money and get off. I think people do not realize till you come ashore and start an entrepreneurial spirit or an enterprise, that the mastery of fundamentals on board is a huge plus. You start off with a real advantage. So that's one thing. Focus what you're doing on board. Don't treat it as frivolous. Do it with complete intent. Read every damn manual available. Read every article available. Read every relevant organization. So I think now with the internet available on board, I would recommend to all the seafarers that go to these IMO websites, all these relevant websites related to marine and in technicals, and get yourself up to date with that. Because in our times, we used to never have these privileges, and we used to come and struggle on board ashore to find. So that would be my advice. And while you are still on board, start to formulate what you're going to do. That you don't become an entrepreneur, but overnight just coming ashore one day and you wake up and think, "Aaj se main entrepreneur ban jata hu." It's a journey. Being an entrepreneur is a journey. So I would say, start planning while you're on board. And the crystallization of these thoughts and values doesn't happen overnight. They will metamorphose. They will change. Today you may be thinking something. By tomorrow morning you find it stupid. But that's very natural. Don't get hassled with it. It's how it really works.
Correct.
So that would be my advice. That start early planning. Have a very clear thought lines, or at least broad lines in place, and master what the knowledge you do on board. Master those knowledges. Don't be superficial in them.
Okay. Any last thoughts to the audience?
I think for all my seafarers and non-seafarers, I think a very simple success story for anything, in work or in personal relationship, I call it the 3D secret. It's called discipline, diligence, and determination. When you put these three elements together with the knowledge we are talking about and the planning in place, it's very rare you will fail. Life has its own twists and quirks, but what is in our hand is to put the effort. And if you put that in, you'll end up mostly on the right side of things.
Thank you so much, Saab. Mr. Kishore Nigam, thank you so much.
Thank you,
pleasure to have you.
Same here. I think it's been wonderful. You brought out the best of my memories from long time back.
Thank you so much, Saab.
Thank you.
Port to Port is blessed to have you today. So guys, we had interesting conversations, very interesting, very inspiring conversations with Mr. Kishore Nigam. Stay tuned. Port to Port is going to bring you more interesting conversations where you can learn a lot about shipping and beyond. Thank you so much. Signing out, Port to Port.
Thank you, gentlemen.